And do all right. Welcome to Ask Me Anything Live. And I see my friend Cherise. Hello, Cherise. So Carla, if you will drop me and let me just put it in the chat. Do you guys have chat open? Carla, I'm going to drop you my email address. So it's
Okay.
info at legalwebsitewarrior.com. Just remind me where you're based and that you need a real estate, excuse me, while I turn off my phone, that you need a real estate referral. Um, real
Oh,
estate attorney referral, and I'll ping my listservs. It might take a couple days, but I belong to a couple of good listservs, and I'll see if I can get you a connection in Texas. And
okay.
in the email, just remind me specifically where you're based, what city, just in case I can come up with a local connection for you.
Oh, okay. That works. And you said that was info at, let me see, it's in the chat.
Yep, at Legal Website Warrior, assuming I spelled it
Oh,
correctly. Sometimes my fingers go too fast.
oh, I got it. I see it. You did good. You did good.
Awesome. You never know. And it's a Monday and I'm off coffee, so any number of things could go wrong.
Okay.
Um, so Adam and Cherise and Carla, great to connect with you. Really quick, can I ask you how you either got on my list or learned about this? What's the connection?
Oh, Linda Clements. I was on one of
Oh,
the, yeah,
fabulous. I thought, okay, excellent.
yeah.
Well, and I'm happy if you've got any other questions to help you with that. Let me check in real quick with Adam and Cherise and see how everyone's doing. Adam, what question do you have that I could help you with?
Um, I got the package from you from my website,
Yes.
and I'm actually going to be on the phone this afternoon. My website person
Awesome.
is we're having a meeting, and I wanted to make sure how do I go about using
Yes.
that?
So
Using what I got from you. I mean, is there like a language? Is there something, a portal they go to? I just wasn't sure how it all works because I want to
totally.
make sure I'm
Yep.
covered. Because my online course is going to be put up with my website and everything, and I want to make sure everything is consistent and
Absolutely.
works so that I'm safe.
Yep. Absolutely. Did you get the previous notifications about the workshop times and joining the Facebook group? So you should have received several emails from me by now.
I I, I believe I got one where it said you're going to be doing it this Saturday. Is that
Mhm.
correct?
That's right.
Or
And probably
following
later
Saturday?
today. So later today, watch your email because what I do before each workshop is I look over my documents again, make sure that there aren't any updates that I need to do to them. And then once I update the documents, then I send out the documents with all the links so that people have those, a handful of days before the workshop. I don't really expect people to go through them on their own ahead of the workshop, just because some people are like, oh, it becomes overwhelming, they get frustrated. Some people actually like to read through them. I've had a couple clients that are pretty funny that like, "Oh, I love this." That's usually not the mainstream experience.
Yeah, I
So,
abstract leases. I don't. I'm going to leave the legal stuff to somebody like yourself.
totally. But what I would recommend is that if you can show up live to the workshop this weekend, because you'll have the documents, we're going to walk through them together. I want people to be able to implement them right away. And then you would hand those off to your website person once they're filled out to plug in to your business. And you can take notes on the workshop if that's helpful. Some people, if they want their website person to handle it entirely, they can invite them in to the workshop as well. I've had that done in the past if that's easiest, but some people, they don't want to pay
I'm not
for,
going to do that too. No,
right.
I'm not going to do that. And frankly, I think it's a Saturday, and I'm not going to ask somebody else
Yeah,
to work a time where I will work, but they might not be used to. Again,
totally.
I'm on the East Coast, and they happen to be in Denver, Colorado.
Got it.
So
Got
there's
it.
a little bit of a time difference too.
Totally. But you'll see when we walk through it together, I go through a section that talks about best practices, how to implement, where the documents go, how to achieve constructive notice. So all of these things, if you'll just take notes while we go through that, you can literally, hand off the document, send a quick email summary to your website person, and they're, if they've been in the website world for a while, they're going to have a good
Yeah,
sense about some of these things. So,
yeah,
um,
and they deal with a lot of speakers and force. What is it called? Force majeure and things like that.
totally.
of the economy and the way things have gone. For me, it's just to making sure I get up and running with them and get that stuff done.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. I would say go make sure that my email, info@legalwebsitewarrior.com, is in your contacts. So I don't want you to miss any of the emails coming because you should have, two or three, maybe even four. You should have gotten a welcome email, a little video, then one saying, hey, the workshop is scheduled. Please carve it out on your calendar.
you've got your own folder in my computer and my email.
Okay, perfect. And then, the final one is a little bit of prep for people that have time to do some prep work ahead of the workshop. I really want people to understand where what I call their online real estate is, right? Where all of your landing pages are, where your website is, where your membership site is. And for some people, this all lives in the same place, and for most people, it doesn't. They've got landing pages.
It doesn't for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so long as you know where all of that is and you maybe fill out that spreadsheet ahead of time where you've got a list of, your landing pages, where you're collecting data, where you're transacting sales. I just want to make sure that people understand where that stuff is for themselves.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Awesome. Well, I look forward to supporting you, Adam. So watch your
Okay, thank
email
you.
and then just drop me a line if you feel like you're missing something, but probably later today, people will be getting the links to the documents.
Now, is your email? I'm not playing. I'm not the person that will, start hitting you with emails. Is it just responding to the email address that comes
Totally.
with the
Yep. You
email?
can just hit reply to that one and I'll get them, or my VA will help me respond to them.
Okay, thank you. I
Okay.
appreciate that.
You're
Yes, ma'am.
welcome.
Thank
Good to
you.
see you again.
Yes, ma'am.
Cherise, hello. And I see also
Hey,
Shamiso. Welcome, you guys. How can I help you? Good to see you, Cherise.
good to see you, Heather. I think we're going to see a lot of each other this week. Um, so I have a question. I asked this last weekend at the events, but I still have a question.
No worries.
So this is about doing the LLC
Yes.
and like what the steps are for that. So I've kind of looked it up online, like what do I do in California and stuff like that. Here's my concern
Yep.
is when I first got into this online business game like 5 years ago, and I was like playing around with different ideas. I started with a like a product business,
Okay.
but I did that because I didn't know
Yep.
any better. So I started with a product business and I did the DBA and I did all this stuff through Zoom, and it cost me like, I don't know, like $800 or something to do all the stuff and all the details and get all the paperwork. And then I did it all properly. I registered with everything. And then I ended up paying like another $800 in taxes from like local, state, county, government, federal, da 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 da. And I never sold anything. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I just spent like 2 grand, not counting inventory, not counting ads, not counting like just to exist. And so I heard, and I know this is a California specific thing, but I heard that, if you have like a consultancy business, that's your name, you don't have to do a DBA, and it takes away some of those things. But I know you were talking about protecting your personal assets from your
Mhm.
your business assets, and I don't have any personal assets, so I'm kind of good on that end. But someday I will. And so yeah, I'm just kind of concerned about spending like another thousands and thousands of dollars on an LLC and then keeping up the thing every year, and then like, and so I'm not sure, like, and I know you said do it as soon as possible, so I
Yeah.
don't know, I'm just,
No, it's a
my
fair
question's in there
question. Yep, it's a fair question. So probably what you experienced if you went through LegalZoom and then you paid an additional $800, what I'm guessing that was is that you probably set up an LLC initially or set up some kind of business entity and then you had to pay the licensing and tax board. So California, if you are an LLC, there's an $800 essentially licensing and tax board fee that goes, straight away to that board. And so California is one of the more expensive states for business setup. It's just the reality there. That said, if you don't have, and you're right that if you're consulting under your own name, and this is really true in any state, if you're doing a business as a sole proprietor, right? So that's what it is you're functioning as a sole proprietor. You're using your individual name as your, like Bob Smith Plumbing or Jane, whatever, Jane Jones Consulting. You don't usually need to register because the state can track you using your individual name. It's really about, can the state connect the dots from your business to you personally so that they make sure that you pay the right taxes to the state. So for a DBA, you do have to register the name, or it's called a fictitious trade name. if it's something different than your personal name, right? So that's why people might pay, in some states it's a $5 fee, in some states it might be a $20 fee to register additional trade names. And that is simply so that the state can connect the dots and say like, oh, Greenware Consulting or whatever is the same as Jane Smith. So, but let's be clear that that doesn't actually set you up with a business entity. It's really about tracking the trade name, if that makes sense. So to actually separate out your business liability from your personal assets, you have to create a legal entity to do that. Now, if you don't have personal assets, right, you don't have a bank account with a bunch of money, you don't have a house that you're worried about losing, like, in some aspects, you're basically judgment proof, meaning that if something did go wrong, you have very little to lose, then that's a fair consideration at this point. And what I might say is, don't let that get in the way of doing business, meaning that if you're ready to start doing something in the world, and you just don't have the money to set up a business entity, I don't ever like to see that get in the way, because you can function as a sole proprietor. But if you were sitting on assets, we'd be having a different conversation, right? Because any amount of business done as a sole proprietor brings risk in the door if you have personal assets, right? So because I've talked to people that are like, well, what if I function as a sole proprietor for a while and then I set up an LLC? And in some circumstances that's fine, but if something happens between now and the point that you set up an LLC, you're personally responsible for it. Any personal assets, could be grabbed in a court case or a judgment against you. So, it's if it's a risk that you're willing to take on because there's not much there, it's probably a fair decision, right? Lots of people have gone that route. And what I do say is that at the earliest opportunity that you see business starting to pick up, that you're like, you know what, I could carve out some of these funds for a legal budget and to really do set up the right way, that you consider that, because it does. Once you have the support and structure in place for your business, including as people get farther down the road, bookkeeping help, a CPA, etc., it's all of that bolstering really does help create a more successful business, right? But if you're just at the point where you're like, you know what, I just want to get started, I don't have much to protect, then it's probably a fair way to start.
Okay, that's helpful, because that's how I felt. I felt like I'm just
Yeah.
getting started. I'm doing a lot of like JV stuff. So there's like, I just, not as far as selling my own stuff too much, because
Yep.
I'm still kind of,
But just
doing
promoting
my,
other people's stuff, and yeah.
yeah, and working on like some programs and stuff like that. But this was really holding me back, because I was like, I don't know, can I even sell stuff? Should I even sell stuff? Am I not supposed to sell anything?
Yeah.
And so that was holding me back, to be like, well, maybe I can't sell my own stuff and I have to just wait indefinitely.
No,
And that
no,
was kind of,
don't let it hold you back. You absolutely can function as a sole proprietor. Just
and just make it a
understand. Yep,
priority to get my LLC as soon as possible. Okay.
totally. Yep. I think in your circumstance that feels pretty fair. Stacy?
I have a question about that too. So if you do an LLC, does that mean you don't have to do that DBA thing, because that would be instead of that?
No, great question. So an LLC, right, is the entity. So you could name it, whatever you want. Like I have clients that have really well-known brand names that are registered trademarks, but their LLC is called, 479 LLC or whatever, right? It could be really nondescript. So the name of the LLC is not really what matters. You can name it, like if you've got a business and a brand name, you could name your LLC that if you want it to be that. Or you can create, 479 LLC, like something totally nondescript, and also register a DBA. So people will often do that. So for example, even my business, right? I'm HJP Strategies LLC. But my brand name that also is a registered trademark is the Legal Website Warrior, which is also a DBA. So it's really, and people can have multiple DBAs. The DBA is solely for the purpose of letting the state know, this is how people know me in business, like under this other name or this other brand name. And it connects the dots to your registered entity. Or if you don't have a registered entity, then to you as a sole proprietor.
So the piggyback question on Stacy's, what goes on the invoice? Our DBA or LLC?
Both. You want to identify the proper legal entity that is entering into that agreement or that, engagement. And if they know you as something other than 479 LLC, you want to identify that as well because it'll be confusing, right? So you often what you would put is your LLC name and then DBA, which stands for doing business as, right? And then whatever your DBA is.
So in that example though, so you're actually doing a DBA for the two? You're filing two DBAs?
Yeah,
The
some
name
people
of
have multiple, totally.
But I mean,
So,
are you, in the example, you have 479 or something like
yeah.
that, and then you have the name of your that you're using, so that's
No,
two
you don't. If you register your entity, that's your entity. You don't have to register a DBA in the name of your entity, right?
that was my original question. So if you have if you have a entity filed, then
So
they
so what, Stacy, how do you do business? What's the name of your business?
well, so I'm still jumping this around, but so now I'm looking because my last name's Golden. So I was going to do possibly Golden Knowledge Group
Mm-hmm.
and then LLC.
Okay.
And then the product that I'm working on is Got It Together, and it's an online course. So
Yep.
next one will be called something else and whatever, but the name of the company underlying is Golden Knowledge Group.
Yeah.
So Golden Knowledge Group LLC, that's good. I don't have to do a DBA.
That's good. No, if you register that and you're doing business under Golden Knowledge Group LLC, you're set. You don't need to register a separate DBA. And your product name is really truthfully not a DBA. It's a product. It's one of the offerings through your business.
Right. Got it.
Right.
Okay. Yeah.
And that's
So
a
now,
great name, Stacy.
yeah, you know who came out? Julie Hood came up with that. I'm
Oh,
doing
Oh,
that online.
nice.
Yeah. I found out too, by the way, where we met, Heather. It was through Kimberly Hopshed's whatever thing that
Oh, awesome.
that event. Because I was like looking through some papers because I see you everywhere. I'm like, where which place? But so if you don't want to register, if you don't want to be a California LLC,
Yes.
can you avoid paying that $800? Is it an annual $800?
Well, it's a great question. And really quick, I want to acknowledge we've also got, okay. Okay, Carla just disappeared out of the screen. Can we have somebody else on the call? But no, I see that's Carla. And there's Kim. Hello, Kim. And Shamiso, you're next. You're welcome to, I just want to make sure that you don't feel ignored. Type a question in the chat, but I'll come to you next. And if you can't unmute, that's fine. So Stacy, in regards to that $800, licensing and tax board fee. So, the thing about, and basically the question is, should you set up a business in a different state, right? Here's the trick around that is that wherever you set up your business, you need to have a nexus to the state, right? And there's a test for that. You have to have a registered agent, you have to have local bank accounts, you have to have a physical location or an office where you receive mail. Like you don't just get to, basically throw a dart at the map and decide. Now, certain states are set up more to facilitate out-of-state businesses that want to call their state home state. So it's not that it can't be done, but ultimately, the government is going to have an opportunity to check into, like, do you really do business in the state of California? And if so, you probably are also going to have to then create a foreign corporation on top of that out-of-state business. So it can be a double whammy depending on what your business is up to. Generally, what I find is that in most circumstances, it makes sense for people to create their business where they're based, right? If they've got an office there, if they have any employees or support staff in the state, if they're really, they do tend to serve more people locally than they do other locations. So it's, there's not a one size fits all with this, but you want to be very careful because if you do set up a business out of state, you can end up also sometimes being required to basically register that business in your home state as well. And your home state is where you're going to pay income tax, right? So California has income tax. In Washington, we don't. But it can sometimes end up being a double whammy. So I would just say, be very cautious about that. And again, if you want to talk to a local California attorney on business formation stuff, or anybody on this call, I could get some referrals for you.
Okay, but it's an annual $800, like even if you don't have anything come through
That's right.
business, it's $800.
Yep, that's right.
on top of anything else you do, like it's going to be 800 plus, or could it be 800 up to a certain threshold of income?
Well, I think it's $800 a year up to an income of 200,000, and then above 200,000 you pay additional
I see.
tax and licensing fees. It's my understanding, but I don't practice
Yeah,
law in
yeah.
California.
But
So
when you're doing online business, isn't it you could be doing business anywhere? So you have to, right? I mean,
you could
so
be, and a lot of businesses also have some location-based component where they're doing a lot of speaking locally or hosting local workshops or doing something that really creates a local presence for their business. And so this is why it's really a business-to-business analysis depending on what you're doing in your business.
but as far as like online, if you're just online and you're selling all over the United States, I'm not doing anything.
Yeah, you may be location independent.
Yeah, but as far as taxes go, it's just a California tax return, even if I have money coming from all 50 states.
Yeah, because you live in California. That's where you're going to be reporting your income.
Okay, thank
Give
you.
me a second. I hear my kiddos screaming upstairs and my husband is not home. Just give me 1 second.
Hey, Charisse.
Hi, Stacy. Hi, Adam. Good to see you
Hey.
guys again.
Hey, Adam, I
Yeah,
don't think we met on the other
Yes.
JVology.
Hi, how are you? Hi, Sharice, how are you?
good. How are you?
Doing well. I got on your email list, by the way.
You got on my email list?
Yes, so I want to
Awesome.
learn more about the people that I'm in this with, and obviously, if I can work with you, I'd like to. You are one
What?
of the people. Somebody like yourself and Doug are two people I was very impressed with.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Aviology, and
Can you
I
remind me what
joined.
you do, Adam?
Well, day job. While I'm talking to you guys, I'm a commercial real estate appraiser now that we're opening up again, but I have a meditation course. Um, I yeah, there's a big backstory to many years ago when I started meditating, but I help people reduce their stress, and I do speaking and coaching and that sort of thing.
I remember.
So I put together an online course which is actually being finalized right now in my Kajabi portal, and that's when meeting Heather, I had reached out to her during one of the the sponsor
Yeah.
sessions, find out about that.
All right, Adam, let's take this conversation offline so Heather can get
Yes,
back to
ma'am.
her Q&A. But yeah, as you said that, I was like, I totally remember you telling me that. So thank you.
Awesome. Um, so really quick, and I see that Carla asked a question in the chat. Shamiso, you're next if you've got a question, and then Kim, I also see you, so you're welcome to jump in line. Um, Carla, in regards to your LLC, I see that you created a landing page for potential sellers, has a different name. Should you register the name of the landing page as a DBA? I would say the answer is it depends. Is the name of the landing page, which I assume means the web domain, do you intend to do business under that name? Or is
Yes.
it just, okay, you do.
Yes.
Okay, then it may be appropriate for you to register that as a DBA. If you're using that name there and elsewhere on business cards, etc., then that probably suffices. My goodness,
Oh,
I'm
okay.
having a really hard time. My 2-year-old is of the age where she is she's very vocal. She's been a good little talker, but her brother who is 7 can overpower her a little bit, and so she gets into a screaming mode that just won't stop. So I apologize if you end up hearing that. Let's see. So Shamiso, do you have a question that I can help you with? You're welcome either to unmute or to type something in the chat. Would love to be able to help you because I can't promise how long I'll be on this call based on what I'm hearing in the background. Let me know if you have a question. Otherwise, you're also welcome to reach out via email or type it in the chat. Kim, welcome today. Do you have a question for me?
Hi, Heather and everyone. I actually didn't have a question, but I do now because
Okay.
of, I think your response back to Carla
Yep.
and regarding the registering your domain name as a DBA.
Yeah.
Because I have a program, and I have, like a site set up for it. It's not actually my business name, but it's the program itself. And I do have that
Yeah.
on my business cards and, I just use it, right?
Yeah. Well, and
So,
the question around whether you should register it as a DBA is, from the standpoint of the consumer, who do they think they're doing business with, right? If it's your program name, if they think that's the name of your business, then it's probably appropriate to register that if it's available.
hmm
Right? So it's connecting the dots between like how do people find you and seek you out? Who do they think they're doing business with? And making sure that you also claim that name if you intend to do business under that name. But people can often get confused if they've got a business called X, and program offerings called Y and Z. It's really, is it one of your offerings or are you doing business under a whole separate name?
well, I think for me, I think it is an offering for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think about the website, like where I put the copyright and all those things, I do have the program name there.
Mm-hmm.
However, like in my contracts, etc., I have the company name and the program name.
Got it. So let's talk about the copyright notice really quick because people often get this wrong.
hmm
Copyright belongs to the individual, right? So when you create something, copyright actually essentially is attached to the individual, right? So you as Kim actually hold the copyright. Now you can transfer intellectual property rights, right? You could transfer that copyright to your business. And so sometimes like on my stuff, you'll see it may say copyright Heather Pierce Campbell, and then also a line for my business because I want people to be able to trace it back. Like I want them to be able to find me online. But I want people to be really clear that copyright actually rests with the individual. So be very careful that, you try somewhere in there to put your individual name and the year that the work or the thing was created
hmm
so that, people know that it's you. And if you want to also identify your program name or the business, I think that's fine. But, generally a copyright notice, you're going to want to have the date, your name, the date that the work was created. And we should talk about this for a minute as well, because people often, in fact, I got somebody at a recent JVology event that said, your copyright notice needs to be updated to 2020. And
Yeah, I was going to bring that up next.
I said, but I created it in 2019, like this particular set of slides. And he's like, well, I still think you need to update it. And the thing that people get wrong, if you go visit a website, and particularly in the online space where, there can be overlap between what other people are doing, people start getting concerned about their work being ripped off. Excuse me, don't be one of those people that constantly updates your copyright to the current year because it tells people you're brand new. This thing just barely got created, which may also raise a question in their mind about whether or not you actually own that content or duplicated somebody else's content if they feel like theirs is really similar, right? And so you always want to, and which is also why in some instances you may see a span of time, like on some of my documents, for those of you that are going through my course, you'll see 2015 to 2019 or 2020, right? The original documents were created in 2015, but they've evolved. I've updated my templates over time as things have changed. And so that's an appropriate way to deal with website content, for example, is at the bottom of your website. And truthfully, your copyright notice, you shouldn't just rely on the bottom of your website for that. If you publish an article, if you publish an image, your copyright notice should show up on the article, on the image as well, or very close to it, because in the online world, if somebody scrapes your data and removes the copyright notice, you can get access to damages that wouldn't otherwise be accessible to you, even without a federal registration. So you want to just make sure that your copyright shows up near the work. Along the bottom of a website, it's fine to have the span of time that your website has been up and you've been publishing content to that site. So, if you had a website that started in 2011, I would leave that original 2011 on there to let people know, like, hey, I've been around, I'm in this industry, I've been creating content for some time. People make the mistake of getting rid of that original copyright date and continuing to update it, which just people often misunderstand. So hopefully that helps as well.
It does. And I just have one last question. So when you said that, oh man, it kind of escaped me. Something. So are you saying like where, like for example, I have copyright, RHL 2020, and if I started in 2017, I should do 2017 through 2020 or just 2017?
Sorry, I've got a visitor that just walked in. Come here, sweetie pie. Okay.
I remember her.
This is my little Mowgli who doesn't believe in clothing. She luckily believes in diapers, but not clothing. So we can, yeah. Okay, sweetie, will you give me just a second? Okay. Mommy's in the middle of a call, right? So I need you to just be quiet back there and just play a little game for just a few minutes. So Kim, thank you. You asked, and I apologize because she was walking in, about a span of time. You said like 2017 to 2020. Is it on a particular item? Is it website? Is it a piece of work?
You know what? It's actually on like a piece of work and on the website, because I guess the guidance I was given however many years ago was the fact that, hey, you got to keep this up to date, kind of like what you were saying. So erasing the history, if you will.
Don't erase the history. Go back to the original time that you created the work, update that copyright notice. It's fine if you want to span it to today. So for example, if you've got a website like I do, it has evolved over time, right? I published content in 2015 and I've published content in 2020. So I probably should go check my footer notice to see what it says, but it's probably time for me to update it to 2020. So yeah, in your instance, it would be that span of time if it's something like a website that truly has evolved over time. Now, if you published a book or a workbook or a set of worksheets to go along with a course, and you did that in 2017 and you haven't made any changes to them, there's no need to create a 2017 to 2020 span of time. You created the documents in 2017, they were complete, and that has been, their form for 3 years. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. But what if I rebranded it? So the content is the same. It's just the logo and different things like that that are a little bit different on the worksheets.
Yeah, I
So
mean
do I?
it's a choice. You can totally it's copyright notices, let's be clear that they're not even required. Like
Okay.
you have copyright whether you put a notice on it or not. What the notice does is it does help people understand, like, oh yeah, this belongs to somebody. It might flag them to not duplicate it or do something with it where they might otherwise have slipped up and made such a decision. So, I mean, we don't need to go overboard. I know some people are offended by copyright notices every place. In the online world, I would rather see them than not. But that's me as an attorney speaking, because I have seen how many times people screw up and steal other people's work, and I really don't like that part of the online world.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, good question. And then, Charisse, yeah, your name at the bottom of your website instead of the website name or company name, I'd have both. You could do copyright Charisse Alexander, comma, and then your business name, right? But that way people know the copyright rests with the individual. And then as far as putting your copyright notice on your worksheets or documents, generally I put them in the footer. So I'd have like copyright Heather Pierce Campbell, the legal website warrior, and then I'd actually have my domain address. Part of it is I want them to identify me, and then I want them to be able to come find me and contact me if they have questions about the content, if they, anything else comes up. So that's generally what I do.
So my worksheet footer would be similar to my website footer.
Yeah,
We're just like
similar.
at the very bottom, it can be like copyright Sharice Alexander, comma, jvjoy.com.
Totally. Yep, exactly. Yeah. I just like people to, have a really easy way to connect the dots and then get in touch if they have questions. Stacy?
So, and I had looked into this before. So the difference between a copyright and a trademark. So copyright, you could just state that it's a copyright, like if you don't record it anywhere, have to register it or anything.
You don't have to register it to use the copyright symbol, right? A federal copyright registration will help you in the event that you need to enforce your copyright, right? So it will allow you to obtain treble damages, which makes a copyright much more enforceable. Because otherwise, you could be out of pocket attorney's fees or other expenses. And if somebody getting a copyright registration essentially puts you first in line, it gives the presumption, hey buddy, can I help you? It gives the government the presumption that you did create the content that you said you did, and you are the legal owner. And so if you have that copyright registration, essentially it puts you first in line to be able to enforce that if something comes up. And then you're able to recover some damages. Now, a trademark registration, think of the way I describe trademarks versus copyrights is trademark is very high level. Think of trademark as kind of the top of the mountain. It's a business name, it's a tagline, it's a short name or phrase, right? And that's really top level branding. So like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or Starbucks or Nike, just do it, right? Both Nike and their tagline, just do it, are trademarks. So, think of a trademark as top of the mountain. It's really like what's visible to the marketplace for the most part, especially around branding and identity. Whereas copyright really protects the body of the work. Like copyrights protect the mountain, right? That's your website, your workbooks, your regular book, any pages that you publish, any videos that you publish are protectable by copyright. So that's kind of the analogy that I use, right? Top of the mountain, rest of the mountain. Copyrights do a lot of the heavy lifting, but trademark is really about brand identity. Does that help?
Yeah. But the trademark, you actually have to do something to have a trademark. You can't just put the little symbol.
Right. You have to actually seek a registration. Well, let's be clear that there's two parts to the trademark symbol, right? There's TM. People can put TM on a phrase or a business name. That alerts anybody who sees it that you intend or are seeking a trademark registration, right? So you're in the process of seeking a trademark registration. You don't get to put the R in the circle until you actually have a registration. And that's the point that you have protection if you're on the principal registry. If you're on the supplemental registry, by very nature of being on the supplemental registry, you don't get exclusive use over that phrase or name. So principal registry is really where you want to land. And if you get on the principal registry, then you can put the R and the circle around it. And supplemental as well, but it's a different level of protection. Most people don't want to end up on the supplemental registry. Okay, great questions. Anything else? And Shamiso, if
This is Kim. I've never.
Oh yeah, Kim, go ahead. I was just going to say if Shamiso, who hasn't asked a question yet, if they're available, they can ask.
Okay. So I have a question. I mean, I have a trademark, but how do I find out if it's on the supplemental or the principal registry? Because I'm just using TM.
Yeah, here.
Look on
you're just using TM, but you've got a registered trademark. So switch that out. Yeah. Go and update that so that it's an R in the circle. But let me just look up your registration for you. What do you have a trademark on?
Successful and fulfilled.
Successful and fulfilled. Okay, so like a tagline?
Yes.
Okay. Let me just do a quick search and see if it comes up. And is and spelled out, so it's successful and fulfilled like in all the words, or is it ampersand?
It's and.
And, okay. Okay.
And I mean, I picked the categories. I don't know, like 4 or 5 different categories, I guess.
Got it. Successful and fulfilled. Here we go. Dynasty Lifestyle Solutions.
Yeah, that's my company name.
That's your company? Okay. So yeah, they're the registered owner. It is on the principal registry, so you've got a principal mark. So it, you should, let me see, when did this go live? 2000, published for opposition in 2019, and then the registration date was August. So yeah, you, at that point in August, you could have switched over from using a TM to actually the R in the circle.
Okay. So I probably just need to have like everything, the graphics and everything
updated. That's right.
All right, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, good questions. Anybody else? Shamiso, did I just see you unmute?
Yes, you did. Hi.
Hello, how are you?
Fine, how are you?
Good.
Yeah, first of all, thank you for pronouncing my name correctly. I heard so many variations of it. So,
Well, you're welcome. I'll consider myself lucky. I really hate when I mispronounce somebody's name, but it was a guess.
okay. So, I'm just a newbie starting out. So, just to hear everyone's conversations has been very enlightening, as far as
Excellent.
the legal side of this. I'm trying to produce my own content, written and video, and it'll go up on my website and social media. And I'm just concerned about protecting my original creations and also not, being dinged for using other people's content. I know that there's some rules about, if it's a certain amount of time or, it's acceptable for if you're using some other content, or I don't know exactly what all the rules are. Can you recommend some place where I can get the rules and any documentation I need to submit on, using other content and protecting my own for audio and
Yeah,
visual?
no, and it's a great question. So I'm not sure what you mean by a certain amount of time.
I've heard that too about like books, like book copyright specifically, saying that, oh, once the book, like any book made in
Oh,
like
yeah, yeah, yeah.
1932 or before is out of
It's
copyright because it only
public
lasts like
domain.
100 years or whatever. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, there we go. Sorry, I thought you meant yes. So you can search works that are in the public domain. There's a database, or you can generally find them online. It is, and I'm trying to think of how many years. It's quite a while. It's like, let me see. Like, I want to say Lord of the Rings is not, it's still not, in the public domain. Let me just look really quick. Um, But generally, so let's talk about it generally, and then let's see. So all works published in the United States before 1924 are in the public
Okay.
domain, right? If they're published after 1923 but before 1978, they're protected for 95 years from the date of publication. If the work was created but not published before 1978, then the copyright lasts for the life of the author plus 70 years. So what this means is unless you're looking at something that's, quite old, you should assume that you shouldn't use it.
Okay.
Um, and some things, you can go look and search out things that are in the public domain, but most of the issues that I see that get people into trouble are snagging other people's content that's live online currently and duplicating some portion of it. And so the general rule is unless you have created it, paid for it, or you've got a written license to use it, including commercially, because most people that I serve, that's what they're using the information for, is for a commercial purpose. You shouldn't use it. Now, there are what's called fair use exceptions, but that's usually, for educational purposes, for satire, for news or informational reasons. It's generally not how people are using information in the businesses that I serve. So, one of the regular myths, it's something that people come to me with, like, well, I thought that if you just change 10% of something, then you get to use it. I don't know who started that rule. I'd like to wring their neck, but it is absolutely not true that you can take content and just change a few words or do something to make it your own. It's not how it works.
What
Okay.
about in, I know Google for images, for example, they have a special filter where they say free to use and modify even for commercial purposes. Can I trust that? Are you familiar with that?
I'm
And
not
can I trust
familiar with
that?
the Google filter. No, I mean, I know that there's databases that will allow you free use of the images. You always have to check the licensing language, but there are databases of like photographs and images online that will allow for commercial use. Generally they'll identify the creator of the work. If you can provide a reference, it's a nice thing to do, but A lot of people make the mistake of just thinking like, well, it's on the internet, I get to use it, and that's absolutely not true. So you always want to make sure that you're getting images from a site that's providing a very specific license for the type of use that you are using. And whether that's free or paid for, you just want to make sure that you really understand the use of, I mean, the source of where you're getting your images from, and not be just snagging them from the web or from Google. I mean, I can't speak to that filter on Google, but
Yeah, on their advanced image search, yeah.
yeah, just be
But
very careful.
and what about if you know, I've heard that if I'm taking the images myself, and there are people in the image, if it's a lot of people, it's fine to use that material. But if I'm zeroing in on that person or a group, you know, some smaller group of people, I have to get them to sign a waiver or something in order to use their likeness.
Yeah, generally, I mean, if it's for commercial purposes, again, like if you were a reporter from a magazine or newspaper, right, a different set of rules would apply. But if you are using the images in your business for your business, you're definitely safest to get basically a media release. Somebody that says, yes, it's fine for you to use this image, right? And you get a waiver of those rights so that they basically give you permission to use their likeness. Otherwise, people can get in trouble with, you know, invasion of privacy and different things, and using images of people where they don't have consent.
And that's even if I take a picture, say, of a crowd of people, you know,
Yeah,
am I
you
still
know,
in danger there?
I mean, probably not as much. I mean, you know, truthfully, I don't do a lot of copyright infringement work.
Hmm.
Let me see. You know, that would be something that, and I think it probably, again, depends on the circumstances, but, you know, the risk, the reality is that, you know, if you're really looking to minimize risk, you would want to make sure. So, for example, if you were hosting an event, you know, I deal with a lot of entrepreneurs who end up putting on events or are speakers, right? You would want to just build that media release into the terms of purchase, right? Into
Okay.
so that people are signing off even ahead of attending, that they consent to your photographer or your videographer being there and capturing the event. That's
Okay.
generally to be expected. Now, if you are you're just an attendee at the event, you know, partly depends how you're using the image. If you're really trying to profit off of it, use it commercially, you know, I would say still exercise caution. But yeah, if it's with a whole group and nobody's really standing out or being highlighted in a certain way, you know, generally that's probably less risky than posting an image of a person or two who might be really offended that you use their image in that way, right? But
Hmm.
if you wanted to talk to somebody who does, you know, copyright and trademark, both registrations and enforcement, I could
Hmm.
connect you to some folks that really do that exclusively. I help coach people on the map and getting all the pieces of the puzzle put together, but I don't file registrations for my clients. I refer them to people who do that specifically.
Okay. Okay. Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, good questions. Anything else today? No, we're good. Well, great to see you guys. I hope you all have a very nice week. Thanks for joining in today and asking great questions. Come visit next week, or you can also check out past recordings. So if you go to YouTube and go youtube.com/Heather P. Campbell, just like the soup, you'll see some playlists there. And I actually have a batch, probably the 4 last weeks, that I need to post to my YouTube playlist there for Ask Me Anything Lives. But there have been a lot of topics that have already been covered in the past. And so if you find you have other questions come up, you might go check those recordings, because I also put into the notes what we covered on those calls. But great questions today. Good to connect with you all. I'll see some of you this weekend. I know Cherise hopped off, but Kim I'll be connecting with, Adam I'll be connecting with. Looking forward to it, you guys. All right. Take care. Have a good week. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
You.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
You're welcome.